Section 107 can be a bit overwhelming, especially if you're trying to teach it to primary kids or teenagers. So I just think you want to start at the fundamentals. And if you can find an engaging way to do that, your chances of them remembering it are so much better. That's why I wanted to create a game. So this game could be adapted to primary use or teenage use, or just to be done in a family with lots of different ages around. But it's basically just a ping pong ball rolling game. It's really simple, but the concept is so that you can help your kids understand the fundamentals. I went to the Gospel Principles Manual. Whenever I wonder, like, how much should I try to teach my kids? What's the appropriate amount for them to learn? Because the priesthood is one of those lessons that you could have many, many lessons about the priesthood and still never quite get to the end of it. So I just think you want to take it in stride and do a little bit at a time. So for this object lesson, you're going to create kind of a target of sorts. You're going to make these tiny little boxes. About half of them are blue and half of them are yellow. That's to represent the Aaronic Priesthood and the Melchizedek Priesthood. Melchizedek Priesthood is blue. The Aaronic Priesthood offices are yellow. Inside each little bucket, you're going to find details from the Gospel Principle Manual about that particular office. If you were teaching this to a primary class, you might ask them some really basic questions like, which kind of priesthood is a deacon? What priesthood is that? And let them roll the ball across the table and try to land in one of those yellow buckets. And if they land in any of the yellow buckets, they'll have a better understanding of Aaronic priesthood, that a deacon is a part of this Aaronic priesthood. Then you could expand that and talk to them about how the Aaronic priesthood is an appendage of the Melchizedek priesthood. So now let's go to the blue side. Let's talk about some of these offices and give them some simple questions about those offices. You honestly could use the information that's on the box to ask questions. Or if you're working with a big group of teenagers and you want to make it a lot harder, then you want to pull the question sheet from the printable. This is just a question and answer sheet that guides you towards one of those 10 buckets. Basically all the offices of the Aaronic priesthood and all the offices of the Melchizedek priesthood, in addition to the one that you find about the first presidency. Technically speaking, in the Gospel Principles Manual, they don't mention the first presidency as its own office because they are apostles. But since so much of 107 talks about the first presidency and the president of the church, I decided to make its own bucket here so that you could ask some of those questions and refer them back to 107. Each of these questions has a scripture reference that your kids could go to. So if you have time on your hands in a seminary class or in a family setting, you might ask them a question and then have them search their scriptures for the answer, then try to roll the ball in the right direction. And if they get it in the right zone, they still get points, right? If I'm aiming for patriarch, but my ball accidentally lands in the high priest bucket, you could talk about how, well, this is the same priesthood and a patriarch is a high priest. Maybe you give them points for that. Or if you're aiming for the office of a teacher and it lands in the deacon spot, you could talk about how a teacher, even though they aren't the ones that regularly pass the sacrament, they absolutely can pass the sacrament. So you could give them points for that. You might adjust the points based on your age group, but I hope it actually helps you have a conversation and a lesson in the game. As things happen in the game, you'll be like, actually, let me explain this a little bit better. Did you know that the members of the first presidency are apostles? Did you know? Like, you could have those conversations as the ball rolls. And then hopefully after a few rounds, your kids have a better understanding. They won't know everything. The game isn't designed to teach you everything. For example, a stake president isn't one of the buckets, right? We haven't got to that by the time of section 107, but there's a lot they can get an understanding of if they play. It'll be a good baseline to help them build on for the future. And it's fun at the same time, so that's always a win.